If you have not watched Squid Game yet, yeah, go watch it first and then come back to this video because there are going to be a ton of spoilers. Or watch this video anyway because it's gonna be like really good. Welcome to my favorite art reference, my favorite art references in Squid Game. Oh my gosh, guys, I just painted my nails and so they're still a little bit wet, and I like jabbed my thumb because when I talk and I feel like I'm saying something important or exciting, I move around my hands a lot, and literally 30 seconds in, barely, there's a chunk, so I'm gonna quickly repaint that right now. Hi, by the way, I'm Jess, and this is not how I anticipated the start of this video. Oh god. Oh, it's definitely lumpy. We're gonna try to talk less with my hands for the rest of the video. See, I almost did it again. In this video, I am going to talk about my 3 favorite art references that I saw in Squid Game. And I'll discuss, you know, the hidden meaning within each one and how it says a lot about the characters and the show itself and all of that good stuff. This is getting annoying real fast. Spirit fingers. So let's take a look at the Squid Game scene and the art reference side by side so you can get like a little quick peek at what I am going to be talking about in this video. First up, we have this happy but deadly maze of a stairwell. Next, this little desktop collection of art books and prints. You love an art history fan. And then finally, this dinner party I would never want to be invited to. Let's start off with the stairs of impending doom. This might be one of the most iconic or recognizable spaces in the show. Actually, no, I take that back. That's hard to say because so many different sets and spaces and moments in Squid Game is like burned into my brain forever, and it's all I see when I close my eyes at night. But we do see this staircase a lot because the players have to walk through it before and after each game. So when you think about the players and their constant climbing of these staircase, I think it represents them trying to climb the social ladder at all times, yet all of their actions are still overseen and manipulated by the more rich and powerful anyways. There is no escaping this capitalist system. Also keep in mind that the script for Squid Game was written between 2008, 2009, so, you know, against the backdrop of one of the worst financial crises in our modern time. And the director, Hwang Dong-hyuk, I'm so sorry if I'm saying that wrong in any way, he was going through a ton of financial hardship himself, so a lot of the stuff going on in the world at the time and like the personal stuff going on for the director all contributed to Squid Game. Back to our staircase, there's a wild assortment of shapes and colors. It's very whimsical. Like if you didn't know what was going to happen in the show, you'd be like, oh, how cute and fun. It's like almost like something from a children's show. It seems happy and innocent at first glance, but we know better now. It's hard to keep track what direction everything is facing and what's up from down. I think we can at least be thankful that these stairs don't move. Because there are so many levels and intersecting stairwells, it really looks dense on screen and amplifies just how many players have signed up for this game. It looks like a busy ant colony or beehive with everyone buzzing around and marching and just doing what they're supposed to be doing. And it feels kind of mechanical, like they're all just parts in a system. Just a touch of, I did it again. I literally did it again. Did it again. Oh my god, my right thumb. Should I just like pat it down and then add more? Should I start over? We're not phased? Lumpy. Whenever I do this hand thing to make the camera focus, I feel like such a YouTuber. Yeah. What I was gonna say is, on the other hand, this stairwell area does a great job of also drawing attention to how few players are left when, you know, the player count sadly starts to dwindle. The flat, bright colors just makes them look sad and isolated, and it's creepy. Let's get into the actual art inspiration for this scene. This is Relativity by M.C. Escher, created in 1953. I remember being in elementary school and going through those optical illusion type books, and now looking back, I am realizing that most of those pictures I was looking at were by Escher. I was always so intrigued how Escher could make something so familiar and normal suddenly just defy the laws of gravity and what's possible. Escher loved puzzles and math. Can't relate, honestly. But it allowed him to create these impossible geometric shapes while still giving the viewer an illusion of a believable space. Like, honestly, this reminds me of that scene in Inception where they're walking up and down and around that impossible Penrose stairwell. In Escher's work, if you notice, all of the people's faces, well, there are no faces. They have no faces. What else does that remind you of? That, obviously. Because Escher's figures are faceless, it makes them feel even more robotic and removed. They're just following orders and doing what they're supposed to be doing and moving about the space in probably a very routine way. And that reminds me a lot about the soldiers in Squid Game. I think that this is an amazing artwork to draw inspiration from, not only because it just looks really trippy and cool visually, but mostly because many of the feelings I have about it also applies to Squid Game. The games and spaces in Squid Game, along with Escher's work, both mimic reality to a certain point, yet there's something off about it. By the way, I went to EDC like 2 weekends ago, and I swear this is relevant. Yes, I'm that person that will like try to bring it up in conversation because I just want to like let people know I want it. So many different DJs used the red light, green light song in their sets. Everyone in the crowd would actually stop when they were supposed to stop, and it was so cool. And there were so many people dressed up in like the Squid Game jumpsuit. It's very surreal. In summary, to wrap up this section, just like how Escher manipulates reality to get his viewers to see what he wants them to see, the same thing is going on with Squid Game in the way that the frontman and the creator are all manipulating the player's reality, all for the sake of the game. The juxtaposition of darkness and lightness and good and bad is a very key theme throughout the show, especially here. Yes, we made it to our second art references. There's kind of a few going on. So this is the scene where the police officer, Junho, is searching for clues about where his missing brother, Inho, might be. So he goes to check out his room to see if there are any clues, anything that he left behind. So he's checking out the room, which is quite tiny. And then we see the desk and boom, turns out the brother is a fan of some motherfucking art. Nice. Before I get to talking about the art-related books, we have a famous novel, The Catcher in the Rye here. Yes, my high school self is shaking a little. So now that we've all finished the show together, we know, looking back at this, that all along the brother was the front man. Honestly, I called it. Like, I just like felt it. Oh, fuck, did I? So this book, Catcher in the Rye, I feel like it makes some sense that it's in the front man's room. Let me tell you. Well, I'll try. It's been forever since I've read The Catcher in the Rye, like I think since high school. But the main gist of it is that the protagonist, Holden Caulfield, he was all about preserving one's childlike innocence. Caulfield has a super cynical and distorted view of adulthood and the world, and basically thinks that childhood and that point of view is the only pure state of being. I could see the front man reading this book and siding a lot with Holden Caulfield and just being like, yes, yes, I get what you're saying. On the desk, we also have this book by Jacques Lacan, The Theory of Desire. I am not going to really talk about this book because I don't know enough about it other than he was a famous French psychoanalyst and psychiatrist, and the brother, the front man, we're just gonna refer to him as the front man from now on. Maybe the front man wanted to study up on human desire so he could be a better manipulator of all the players. I think I read somewhere online that Lacan was all about, you know, understanding that human desire is kind of heavily dependent on what everyone else around us is doing and wanting, and I don't know if that's right, but I think that makes a lot of sense for Squid Game, and you should probably know all that stuff if you're going to be the evil overlord running these games. And for the art books, he has very limited desk space. They're taking up prime property. This is a chunk of a Vincent van Gogh book. You know, everything shot in this series was very intentional, like all the attention to detail, the colors, the background sets. What I'm saying is it's not random that these art books were selected to be on the front man's desk. What could it mean? You know, maybe the front man was just a big fan of those thick brush strokes, contrasting colors, self-portraits, or maybe the brother was fascinated by the artist's life. Van Gogh had a really difficult and troubled existence. He was dealing with psychotic episodes and depression and delusions. Some of his most famous paintings were painted while he was at an asylum. And I feel like you could feel the turmoil in his works. Like he could take something like a sunflower and suddenly turn it into this menacing, claw-like, scary creature. When I look at his flowers, I'm like, those flowers are pissed. Like, they do not want to be here. I know not all of them are like that. You know, some are just like really pretty and serene, but like, I look at this and I'm like, yeah, he's going through some shit right now. I think that the Van Gogh book may represent the eventual madness and the dark road that the front man is going to eventually go down. The end of Van Gogh's life was not the most pleasant, to say the least. So we will see. Moving on with his art book collection, we have some Claude Monet books.
You think she's pretty? Yeah, she's a full-on Monet. What's a Monet? It's like the painting, see? From far away it's okay, but up close it's a big old mess.
He painted a lot of landscapes, like you probably know him from Water Lily paintings that he painted a shit ton of. So maybe the front man, you know, was drawn to Monet because a lot of these landscapes are very serene and calming. And I can imagine with the type of stressful job he has, he might want to, you know, engage in some self-care. Monet was so obsessed with light that he would repeatedly paint the same object or same building over and over during different times of the day just to capture how the different shadows and everything looked. He was super fascinated with how colors interacted and how our eyes perceived light. So maybe this all represents how the front man is searching for the light. I think the Monet books might be there because the front man is interested in color theory and how colors interact. If he picked the color scheme for the world of Squid Game, the uniforms that the players and the soldiers are wearing, he must have a good grasp of how colors interact. This is a color wheel. Notice how pink and green are on opposite sides. They're contrasting colors. So when you put these colors right next to each other, like the players and soldiers' uniforms, the contrast is intense and super startling to our eyes. The choice to pick these colors makes it clear that they are two opposite forces and they clash. Then we also have some Pablo Picasso books here. One on his blue period, his rose period, and then I think more of his cubism period. The blue period for Picasso, he was blue, he was depressed. His works were mostly monochromatic. He often painted characters that were super lonely and isolated. Then we have the rose period, and the rose period, you know, was warmer in color. And I find this period kind of like eerie and creepy because Picasso often painted like carnival circus related subjects. Yes, I am immediately thinking about that creepy circus-like bridge during that stepping stone challenge in Squid Game. Picasso went through so many different styles, but one thing that really sticks out to me when I think about his art is the way that he painted faces. They were often obscured, they were very geometric. It was almost like you're seeing all their different emotions at the same time, or seeing them from different angles at the same time, or they often just looked really mask-like to me. And so I see a connection to the front man and his mask almost, and him hiding behind this protective shield so you don't really see or understand who he is until the very end. Also, this painting, this is Picasso's Girl Before a Meal Mirror, completed in 1932. And this immediately came to mind when I was thinking about the front man and the show and the fact that he had these Picasso books. That scene in the end when he's looking into the mirror and he's just like contemplating his existence and what he had just done, and the fact that he just shot his brother off a cliff. And then he sees his brother's reflection looking back at him. I thought of this painting immediately because I just saw so many parallels. Both figures are looking into the mirror and they may or may not be terrified or confused or scared about what they're seeing looking back at them. Moving on to what I think is the most important art reference in the brothers' room, René Magritte. He's actually one of my favorite artists. His works just feel really dreamy and weird in a good way. It feels like you're looking into a scene from a fantasy movie and like this world that I like want to visit for a second. A bit of background on Magritte. He was a famous surrealist artist. In a tiny little nutshell, surrealism was a movement that was all about freeing the unconscious, irrational mind. The unconscious was like the more creative, more powerful part of us. So surrealist artists were all about, you know, like trying to like let that run free. They were all about going against the norms of society and how we were supposed to think. So back to our guy Magritte. He would paint these hyper-realistic scenes that we'd recognize from everyday life, juxtaposed with impossible elements and dreamlike situations. And it's perfect, honestly. The entire world of Squid Game feels like a weird, bad dream. It's surreal. And at the very end, the front man tells Gi-hoon to think of Squid Game as a dream. Very on brand of him. You've probably seen some famous Magritte paintings, even if you didn't know you have. Like this one. Or this super famous painting, it's called The Son of Man, completed in 1964. His face is obstructed just like our front man. I like reading a lot into things. And I noticed that a lot of these set designs created for Squid Game has a very Magritte feel to them. This scene in particular, with the clouds painted on the walls, along with the very important umbrella symbol, the scene honestly reminds me of Magritte so much. Okay, at this point you're probably like, Jess, but like what does it all mean? Like what? Fine, I'll talk about it. So what we have here are from a group of paintings called The Dominion of Light, or Empire of Light, depending on how you translate it. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce it in French. Magritte painted this subject 27 times. He must have liked it. And that's why you see a bunch of slightly different versions, even here in the frontman's room. What's consistent throughout all of these is the paradoxical mix of night and day. Magritte thought this combination was enchanting and surprising. I find it creepy. These works have to be so important to the frontman though, because he has a book on it, he has this little postcard on it, and he has a print of it. Like, so immediately from the title of these, Empire, Dominion, it feels creepy in this context because the brother does run an empire of sorts. He has a dominion over the world of Squid Game. Also, the word empire just always reminds me of Star Wars, and director Hwang Dong-hyuk actually got inspiration for the frontman's mask from Star Wars. I could see him looking at these and it just like relates to him on some deep level. Maybe he's not even aware of it, but I just like see that struggle between good and evil in him. I mean, it sounds like he really does believe that he's running a fair empire where the combination of good and evil and dark and light is absolutely necessary. Yeah, this painting, just like Escher's work, it's familiar yet impossible. The coexistence of both sides together makes each one even more unsettling, if that makes sense. The night is now darker and scarier, and the daylight is suddenly too good to be true. Just like the painting, that mix of dark and light and good and evil is in the front man. Like that dramatic moment on the cliff, he could have killed him off almost immediately, like he has with like other people on the show, but he hesitated and he shot him in the shoulder and let him fall off a cliff rather than him just like fully killing him himself. Like, I feel like he's struggling a lot with what he has become and what he's doing. I do feel like there's some good left in the front man. I don't know, he's gonna have to do a lot of soul searching and therapy to find it, but you know, I think it's in there somewhere. Oh my. I'm editing right now, and this tiny microscopic image on the spine of this book I can't even read caught my eye. Like, can you guys even see this? It probably doesn't even exist. I can't leave it alone. I need to talk about it. I need to talk about it. Not that I needed another work of art to overly dissect into oblivion. So if this tiny little blob is actually a painting, I am pretty sure that this is the Ambassadors by Hans Holbein the Younger, created in 1533. I mean, I do love this work because it is bursting with hidden symbolism. What I think is the coolest part about this painting is the hidden distorted skull that you can only fully see if you're standing on the far right side of the painting. I've done this in person, and it's a really cool optical illusion. At this point, let's just say that the reason that this book is on the frontman brother's desk is because he got it in a Secret Santa gift exchange. But if I don't leave it at that, the skull may represent mortality, memento mori, and is a reminder that the only guarantee in life is death. And so maybe that just resonated with the brother. I need to be cut off from this desk scene. Guys, we are on to our third and final art reference. I know the last section had like a million different like little subparts, but we're just gonna compile those together. I don't know. This is my favorite art reference in the show. Like, as soon as I saw it, oh my God, I was screaming. I immediately thought of The Dinner Party by Judy Chicago. I was so excited about this one because way back in high school, my art history teacher had us create our own dinner party as our like huge final project of the year. And like the main part of the assignment was that you had to choose, I think, 4 to 6 guests to invite to your own dinner party. And they had to be important to us and fit into different categories. Like, some had to be living, some dead. And we actually had to like paint plates, like design plates that honored each guest that we invited. And then we also had to create like a PowerPoint and accompanying music and like the art to go along with it. It was like a whole thing. So you're like, what is the dinner party? She's talking about plates and decorations and all that, blah, 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 blah. The Dinner Party by Judy Chicago has 39 place settings on a triangular table, and each setting represents an important woman in history. So each setting was super unique. There was hand embroidery, and all the plates were painted in the style of that woman that was being celebrated. So there's a ton of different components to this art installation. Like, there's a tiled center, there's acknowledgement panels and embroidered banners throughout. Like, it's a whole thing. And you can see it at the Brooklyn Museum. And side note, you should also check out her other works in general because she is so cool and the works are so cool, and I love getting lost in them. And yeah, check her out. Anyway, back to Squid Game. This scene is so good. It's heartbreaking, but it's so good and dramatic and epic. Like, I love how it was shot. Final 3 players surrounded by the ghosts of players past. And the games, the writing was on the wall the entire time, literally. It's a lot, it's a moment. And this triangle table setup, like, I guess in a weird way they are being honored, but unlike Judy Chicago's dinner party setup, these players still have their identities stripped from them. They're all being fed the same meal, their settings are all the same, they're wearing the same outfits, they're just still players in the game. So I was thinking about this table and I was like, okay, the triangle makes sense because there are 3 players left and all of the soldiers are represented by different shapes and the triangle is one of them. It works. But then I was like, they could have had a circle and like Mr. Circle Soldier guy would have felt represented up there. Then I thought about like the circle is like, I think the lowest rank of the soldiers, and so maybe the fact they're at the triangle table, it elevates the players, like, okay, you've like really worked your way up. I don't know. But also there's a lot more tension in the shape of a triangle versus a circle. A triangle feels like more pointy, you know? You know what I'm saying? Then I kept thinking about triangles. Yes, I want to overthink this entire thing right now. Just stay with me. The internet told me a lot about triangles. I read that it could represent the 3 stages of life: childhood, adulthood, death. Or it could represent change. But then, like, let's think about the number 3 in particular, because I want to keep overthinking this. The number 3 appears so much in art and life actually in general. Like 3s look balanced. 3 is a key part of many different religions. A lot of cultures see 3 as a perfect or lucky number. The more I think about it, the more I realize that we just do a lot of things in 3s. Like we count down from 3 usually, or we say things like the 3rd time's the charm. There's the 3 Musketeers. Also, of course, Regina, Gretchen, and Karen. The Plastics. They're a group of 3, and I think we can all agree that as soon as Katie showed up, she threw off the balance of this trio and almost ruined their Jingle Bell Rock routine. Back to focusing. For the dinner party, Judy Chicago chose a triangle because that represented equality to her. And so that was perfect for her feminist art piece. But then I read that again and was like, equality, oh shit, there it is again. This theme of equality in Squid Game, where everyone's equal and everyone has an equal shot of winning, which I don't necessarily agree with because I think a lot of the games were dependent on if you got lucky. So here in this context, I absolutely loved how Squid Game took a shape that can be associated with equality, balance, harmony, religion, and turned it into something way darker, as they tend to do repeatedly in the show. So now when I look at this triangle table, all I can see is like a road hazard sign, you know, those reflective ones warning you to stay away or be really careful. Or this emoji, meaning of Squid Game hidden in emoji all along. All I have to say is, what an intense Last Supper. Speaking of Last Supper, here's another important triangle composition in art. Okay, I'm gonna stop now. Ugh. I love the show. All the visuals and characters just like really stuck with me. And going through making this video and researching definitely reopened some old wounds. Justice for Ollie. Yeah, and I've also had a lot of like weird dreams and nightmares ever since I've been going hard on researching for this video, so it's probably a good thing I'm gonna take a little break right now. Those were the 3 art references that I really wanted to talk to you guys about, and I hope you found this interesting and fun, and maybe you learned something new. Maybe you learned that I can't do nails. Oh my god, it got worse. Also, I'm really curious about this. Do you think that they should create a season 2? Comment below, because I've talked to my friends and I feel like everyone's 50-50, and so I'm curious. Would you love a 2nd season, or do you want them to just like leave it where it is? Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you really soon. And I mean it this time, unlike the last time, which was like 8 months ago. I just like went through like a weird creative like bleh, like I don't know, I just like kept filming videos, I hated them, edited them, hated them, but I think we're back. I think we're back on the saddle. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have the best day ever, and I'll see you really soon. Bye.